There was a young lady in our house. She walked outside now with us, and she said to my wife and myself that she's the driver. They had an argument, and she drove over.
She's a brilliant philosophy student with a scholarship to Cambridge, studying ethics and theology at one of Britain's most prestigious universities. He's a kind-hearted charity worker who dedicates his life to helping people with brain injuries rebuild their futures. They're young, engaged, and seemingly building a life together in a quiet Cheshire village. But on a spring night in the year 2022, jealousy transforms into something unthinkable. CCTV cameras capture every horrifying second as a Ford Fiesta becomes a weapon, and a game of chicken turns deadly on a residential street. Neighbors hear the engine revving, the screaming, the sickening sounds of impact not once, but 3 times. This is a story that asks uncomfortable questions about love, control, and the terrifying speed at which anger can destroy everything. Because this story will challenge everything you think you know about domestic violence, about control, and about the masks people wear. And by the end, you'll be asking yourself, could I have seen this coming? Alice Wood grows up in Cheadle, a quiet market town perched on the edge of the Staffordshire moorlands, where rolling hills meet suburban streets, and everyone seems to know everyone else. It's the kind of place where children ride bikes to school, where corner shops still know your name, and where ambition often means getting out and making something of yourself elsewhere. And Alice, by all accounts, is exactly that kind of ambitious. She's clever, not just bright, but exceptionally so. Teachers notice it early. She's the student who asks questions that go deeper, who reads beyond the syllabus, who seems genuinely curious about the big questions. What makes something right or wrong? What does it mean to live a good life? How do we know what we know? Her parents, Deborah and Trevor, divorce when she's young, and Alice splits her time between 2 households. Her mother works as a receptionist at a doctor's surgery, steady and reliable, the kind of job that keeps a family afloat. Her father is a furniture maker, a craftsman who works with his hands, creating something tangible and lasting. Alice has 2 brothers, and the family, though separated, remains functional. There's no dramatic backstory here, no obvious trauma or neglect. She's a normal girl from a normal family, navigating the ordinary challenges of a split home with apparent resilience. As a teenager, Alice works part-time jobs, stacking shelves at a convenience store, waiting tables at a local pub. She's polite, quiet, studious. Locals remember her as someone who kept to herself, who didn't cause trouble, who seemed focused on her future. She and her mother sometimes go out together for pub quizzes, a small ritual that speaks to a close relationship. Alice is the kind of young woman who seems destined for good things, and when she earns a place at the University of Manchester to study philosophy, theology, and ethics, no one is surprised. It feels inevitable, like the natural trajectory of someone who's always been a step ahead. At university, Alice thrives academically. Philosophy suits her, the rigorous thinking, the debates about morality and existence, the exploration of what it means to be human. She's studying ethics, the very discipline that asks how we should live, what duties we owe to others, what separates right from wrong. It's a subject that demands introspection, empathy, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. And Alice excels. She's awarded a scholarship for a part-time research master's degree at Cambridge University, one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. It's a remarkable achievement, the kind of opportunity that opens doors to academic careers, to research, to a life of the mind. Her future looks bright, almost luminous. But there's another side to Alice, one that doesn't show up in exam results or scholarship letters. Friends and acquaintances will later describe moments when her mood shifts, when jealousy flickers across her face, when she watches her boyfriend a little too closely at social gatherings. At parties, she's sometimes described as cold, as someone who doesn't quite join in, who stands at the edges and observes rather than participates. There's a tension in her, a watchfulness that others find unsettling. It's easy, in hindsight, to read these moments as warning signs, but at the time, they're just quirks, just the ordinary frictions of a young relationship. Everyone gets jealous sometimes, right? Everyone has moments of insecurity, especially when alcohol is involved, especially at parties where boundaries blur and old friends reconnect. Alice is young, still figuring out who she is, still learning how to navigate the complexities of adult relationships. And besides, she's so accomplished, so intelligent, so seemingly in control of her life. How could someone who studies ethics, who thinks deeply about morality and human behavior, be capable of something truly terrible. But intelligence and education don't inoculate anyone against jealousy, rage, or violence. In fact, sometimes they make it worse, because someone who's used to being in control, who's used to excelling, who's used to having answers, can struggle when emotions spiral beyond reason. And on the night of 6th of May, the year 2022, Alice Wood's control shatters completely. Ryan Watson is 24 years old when he dies, and if you ask anyone who knew him, they'll tell you the same thing. He's one of those people who lights up a room. Not in a loud, attention-seeking way, but in a genuine, warm way that makes everyone feel included, valued, seen. Ryan grows up in Cheadle, the same town as Alice, and it's likely they cross paths long before they start dating. It's a small community, the kind where everyone knows everyone, where school friendships stretch into adulthood, where local pubs and parks serve as gathering points for generations. Ryan is sporty, he loves football, BMX biking, pool. He's the kind of kid who's always outside, always moving, always surrounded by mates. He's good at sports, naturally athletic, but he's not competitive in a harsh way. He just enjoys the game, the camaraderie, the simple pleasure of being active and alive. As he gets older, Ryan's interests expand. He loves music, loves hanging out with friends, loves his dogs. Animals are important to him. He's gentle with them, patient, the kind of person who stops to pet a stranger's dog on the street. His family describes him as having a heart of gold, someone who would do anything for anyone. And it's not just talk. Ryan chooses a career that reflects his values. He works for Headway, a brain injury charity that supports people whose lives have been turned upside down by trauma, accidents, or illness. It's demanding work, both emotionally and physically. Brain injury survivors often need help with basic tasks, with rebuilding skills, with navigating a world that suddenly feels unfamiliar and overwhelming. And Ryan is there for them, day after day, offering support, encouragement, and kindness. His colleagues at Headway adore him. He's the kind of support worker who doesn't just do the job, he cares. He remembers birthdays, he brings in treats, he makes people laugh, even on their hardest days. He's patient with service users, never rushing them, never making them feel like a burden. And when Headway organizes a birthday party for one of the service users in May the year 2022, Ryan is right in the middle of it, dancing, chatting, making sure everyone feels included. One guest will later describe him as the light of the table, someone who radiates warmth and joy. Another will say he helped an elderly woman who had fallen, making sure she was okay, staying with her until she felt steady again. That's who Ryan is. Someone who notices when others are struggling, who steps in without being asked, who makes the world a little bit kinder just by being in it. Ryan and Alice meet during the first lockdown in March the year 2020, a strange and isolating time when the world feels small and uncertain. They start dating, and within 6 months, they're engaged. It's fast, but it's also understandable. Lockdown relationships often accelerate because there's so much time together, so much intensity, so little distraction from the outside world. They seem happy, at least on the surface. They bought a house together in October the year 2021, a modest £120,000 property in Rode Heath, a small village near Cheadle. It's a starter home, the kind of place young couples buy when they're building a future together, when they're optimistic about what's ahead. Ryan's family helps with the deposit, a gesture of support and faith in the relationship. But beneath the surface, there are cracks. He's a peacemaker, someone who tries to smooth things over, who wants everyone to get along. But on the night of 6th of May, the year 2022, something changes. And what happens next? The events of that terrible night will show just how quickly love can turn into something unrecognizable. The evening starts like so many others, a birthday party for a service user at Headway, the brain injury charity where Ryan works. It's held at the Victoria Lounge Bar in Hanley, Stoke-on-Trent, a casual venue where people can relax, have a drink, celebrate small victories and milestones. For the service users, these events are important. They're a chance to feel normal, to socialize, to be part of a community. And for the staff and volunteers, they're a chance to connect outside the usual routines of care and support. Ryan is in his element. He's dancing, chatting with everyone, making sure people feel included. He's wearing a smile that never seems to fade, and his energy is infectious. Other guests will later describe him as the life of the party, someone who makes everyone feel welcome. Alice is there too, but she's different. She's quieter, more reserved. She stands at the edges of conversations, watching rather than participating. And as the night goes on, her mood darkens. Because Ryan is talking to a woman named Tiffany Faraday, and they're clicking. Not in a romantic way. Tiffany's mother is a service user, and she and Ryan have met at other events. They're just chatting, laughing, enjoying each other's company in the easy, friendly way that Ryan has with everyone. But to Alice, it looks like something else. It looks like flirting, and she can't stop watching. Tiffany will later tell police that she felt Alice staring at her all night, that the intensity of her gaze made her uncomfortable. At one point, Alice tells Ryan, "Watch what you're drinking," a comment that feels sharp, controlling, a warning disguised as concern. Other guests notice the tension too. They describe friction between the couple, a coldness in Alice's demeanor, a sense that she's not pleased with Ryan's behavior. But Ryan, ever the peacemaker, tries to keep things light. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just being himself, friendly and open. He doesn't realize that, in Alice's mind, a line is being crossed. The party ends, and the couple leave together. CCTV footage from the car park shows them walking to Ryan's car, a Fiat Punto. There's no obvious argument at this point, no raised voices or dramatic gestures. But the tension is there, simmering beneath the surface. Ryan drives them home. He's been drinking, but he's under the limit. And Alice is even more intoxicated. She's had 2 glasses of white wine, 2 rums, and a glass of champagne. A breath test will later reveal she has 61 micrograms of alcohol per 100 milliliters of breath, nearly double the legal limit of 35. She's drunk, and her jealousy, already inflamed, is about to spiral completely out of control. They arrive home just after 11 p.m., pulling into the driveway of their modest house on Sandbach Road in Rode Heath. And this is where everything falls apart. The argument that's been brewing all night finally erupts. Ryan gets out of the car and kicks a nearby vehicle in frustration, a rare display of anger from someone who's usually so calm. Neighbors hear shouting, doors slamming, the sound of a car engine revving, and then Alice gets into her own car, a Ford Fiesta, and reverses it out of its parking space. What happens next is captured on CCTV, and it's almost impossible to watch. The footage is grainy, black and white, but the sequence of events is unmistakable. Alice reverses the Fiesta towards Ryan, nearly hitting him. He moves out of the way, but she doesn't stop. She drives at him again, this time head-on, and the car strikes him with enough force to send him flying onto the bonnet. For a moment, he's airborne, his body crumpling against the metal. Then he slides off and manages to get to his feet, stumbling, disoriented, probably in shock. And Alice drives at him a 3rd time. This time, there's no escape. The car hits Ryan, and he goes down, his body disappearing beneath the front bumper. And Alice doesn't stop. She keeps driving, with Ryan trapped underneath the vehicle, his screams audible on the footage. She drives for 158 meters, over 500 feet along Sandbach Road, the car's undercarriage dragging Ryan's body across the tarmac. Neighbors hear the screaming, the terrible sound of metal scraping against the road, the engine straining. And then, finally, the car stops. Alice gets out. She's hysterical now, sobbing, shaking. She runs to a nearby house and bangs on the door. When the resident answers, Alice says, "Please phone an ambulance. I think I've run over my boyfriend." The neighbor follows her back to the car, and what they see is a scene of unimaginable horror.
About 10 minutes ago, there was a young lady in our house. She walked outside now with us, and she said to my wife and myself that she's the driver. They had an argument, and she drove over.
There's a pool of blood on the road. Ryan's legs are sticking out from underneath the vehicle. His body is crushed, broken, lifeless. Alice looks at the scene and says, "Look what I've done." Emergency services arrive within minutes, but there's nothing they can do. Ryan is pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death is crush asphyxiation. His chest and abdomen have been compressed by the weight of the car, preventing him from breathing. It's a brutal, agonizing way to die, and it takes time. Ryan would have been conscious for at least some of those 500 feet, trapped and terrified, unable to escape, unable to understand why the woman he loves is doing this to him. Police arrive and find Alice sitting on a sofa inside the house, still sobbing. She smells of alcohol. She's clearly drunk. When officers arrest her on suspicion of murder, she says, "It's fine. I deserve it. Later, in the police van on the way to the station, she says it again. I don't deserve it. Then corrects herself. I deserve it. At one point she tells officers, you should just shoot me in the head. It's a statement that could be interpreted as remorse, as guilt, as a recognition of what she's done. But it could also be self-pity, a desire to escape the consequences rather than face them. At the police station, Alice gives her version of events. She claims Ryan flipped after the party, that he accused her of flirting with other men, that he called her a slag and a whore. She says he threatened to have her mother killed, a claim that seems wildly out of character for someone as gentle and kind as Ryan. She says she wanted to leave, to go to her mother's house, to defuse the argument, but she couldn't find her phone, and Ryan refused to lend her his. She says she got into her car to scare him, to intimidate him, but she didn't mean to hurt him. She claims she didn't see him, that she only realized something was wrong when the car struggled to accelerate. She describes seeing Ryan's body under the car as stepping into a nightmare, as being in hell. But the CCTV footage tells a different story. It shows Alice reversing towards Ryan, then driving at him head-on, then hitting him a third time. It shows her continuing to drive, with his body trapped underneath, even as he screams. And it shows her stopping only after she's dragged him over 500 feet. This isn't an accident. This isn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This is a series of deliberate choices, each one more horrifying than the last. Forensic experts examine the scene and the vehicle. They find no evidence that Alice tried to brake or swerve to avoid Ryan. They find no evidence that she was unaware of his presence. In fact, the evidence suggests the opposite, that she knew exactly where he was, that she aimed for him, that she kept driving even after she'd hit him. One collision expert testifies that Ryan was not an unexpected hazard, because Alice had already driven at him once. She knew he was there. She knew what she was doing. What could you or I have done if we'd been there that night? If we'd heard the shouting, the engine revving, the screaming? Would we have called the police? Would we have run outside? Or would we have assumed it was just another domestic argument, the kind that happens in every neighborhood, the kind that usually blows over without anyone getting hurt? It's a question that haunts the neighbors who heard what was happening but didn't intervene in time. And it's a question we all need to ask ourselves, because domestic violence doesn't always announce itself with obvious signs. Sometimes it escalates in seconds, and by the time anyone realizes what's happening, it's too late. But what happened after Ryan's death? The legal battle, the verdict, the sentencing. Alice Wood is arrested at the scene and charged with murder. It's a serious charge, one that carries a mandatory life sentence if convicted.
Okay, so Alice, based on the circumstance that we found out already, okay, I'm going to arrest you on... Now, listen to me, okay, I'm going to arrest you on suspicion of murder, okay, so you don't have to say anything, but behind your fence, you don't mention now something later on in court. Anything you do, so maybe we know.
But Alice pleads not guilty. She admits to causing Ryan's death, but she insists it was an accident, a tragic mistake, born of confusion, alcohol, and panic. Her defense team argues that she was too drunk to form the intent necessary for murder, that she didn't realize Ryan was under the car, that she never meant to hurt him. They paint a picture of a young woman whose life has been destroyed by one terrible night, a brilliant student with a promising future who made a catastrophic error in judgment. But the prosecution sees it differently. They argue that Alice's actions were deliberate, calculated, and sustained. They point to the CCTV footage, which shows her driving at Ryan not once, but 3 times. They point to the fact that she continued driving for over 500 feet with his body trapped underneath the car, even as he screamed. They point to witness testimony describing her as jealous, controlling, and cold. And they point to the forensic evidence, which shows no attempt to brake or swerve, no indication that she was trying to avoid him. The trial takes place at Chester Crown Court and lasts 3 weeks. It's a grueling process for everyone involved, but especially for Ryan's family. They have to sit through the CCTV footage again and again, watching their son and brother being struck, dragged, killed. They have to listen to Alice's version of events, her claims that Ryan was abusive, that he threatened her, that she was the victim, and they have to hold on to the hope that the jury will see through the lies and deliver justice. The jury deliberates for less than 8 hours. On 2nd of January, the year 2024, they returned a unanimous verdict, guilty of murder. Alice shows no emotion as the verdict is read. She stares downwards, her face blank, as if she's already somewhere else, already disconnected from the reality of what's happening. Judge Michael Leeming remands her in custody and schedules sentencing for 29th of January, the year 2024. He tells her bluntly, "You have been convicted of the murder of Ryan Watson. There is only one sentence that the law allows, and that is life imprisonment. I am required to consider the minimum term you must serve in custody before the parole board deems it safe for you to be released. You may never be released. It is a matter entirely for the parole board." It's a chilling statement, and it reflects the severity of what Alice has done. In the UK, a life sentence doesn't always mean life. Most murderers are eventually released on parole after serving a minimum term, usually between 15 and 25 years. But in cases of exceptional brutality or premeditation, judges can impose a whole life order, which means the offender will never be released. Judge Leeming's words suggest that Alice's case falls somewhere in between. She'll serve a minimum term, but whether she's ever deemed safe to release is far from certain. At her sentencing hearing on 29th of January, the year 2024, the court hears victim impact statements from Ryan's family. His mother, Lisa, reads a statement that's almost unbearable to listen to. She describes Ryan as a bubbly, fun-loving person with a heart of gold, someone who touched the hearts of everyone who knew him. She talks about the pain of watching the CCTV footage, of imagining how scared Ryan must have been in his final moments. She says, "The one person Ryan trusted the most is the person who took his life in such a violent way. I am living in a nightmare, knowing my son's last moments were so brutal." She adds, "Alice is in prison where she belongs. But no sentence is going to be long enough for what she has taken from us. And Ryan, he'll never get to live his life and fulfill his dreams."
Ryan's death has left our family heartbroken. He was taken from us far too soon. Just a young man of 24 years old, with his whole life ahead of him.
Judge Leeming sentences Alice to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years. This means she won't be eligible for parole until the year 2042, when she'll be 41 years old. Even then, release is far from guaranteed. The parole board will assess whether she poses a risk to the public, whether she's shown genuine remorse, whether she's engaged with rehabilitation programs. And given the nature of her crime, the deliberate, sustained violence, the lack of remorse during the trial, it's entirely possible she'll serve much longer, perhaps even the rest of her life. Alice is currently incarcerated in a women's prison in England, likely HMP Style in Cheshire, or HMP New Hall in West Yorkshire, both of which house female offenders serving long sentences. Life in prison, for someone like Alice, young, educated, with no prior criminal record, is a brutal adjustment. She's gone from studying philosophy at a prestigious university, from having a scholarship to Cambridge, to living in a cell, following a rigid routine, surrounded by women who've committed similarly serious crimes. There's no privacy, no autonomy, no future beyond the prison walls for at least 18 years. Whether Alice will ever truly understand the gravity of what she's done, whether she'll ever feel genuine remorse, is an open question. Some offenders use their time in prison to reflect, to grow, to become better people. Others remain locked in denial, unable or unwilling to face the truth. And for Alice, the truth is this: she killed the man she claimed to love, in a brutal, deliberate, sustained attack, because she couldn't control her jealousy. She destroyed his future, his family's happiness, and her own life, all in the space of a few terrible minutes. How can neighbors or communities respond better when they sense danger? What does this say about how we handle domestic violence? About how we intervene when we hear shouting or see warning signs? Let us know your thoughts in the comment, because these are questions we all need to grapple with. One of the most important lessons from this case is that domestic violence doesn't always look the way we expect it to. We tend to think of it as a pattern of escalating abuse, verbal insults, physical violence, isolation, control, and often, that's exactly what it is. But sometimes, as in Ryan's case, the violence erupts suddenly, without the clear warning signs we've been taught to look for. Alice's jealousy was noticeable, but it didn't seem dangerous. She was controlling, but not overtly abusive. And then, in one terrible night, she killed him. It's a reminder that we need to take jealousy and control seriously, even when they don't seem extreme, because they can escalate in ways we don't anticipate. Another lesson is the importance of trusting our instincts. Several people at the party noticed that Alice seemed cold, that she was staring at Tiffany. that there was tension between her and Ryan. But no one intervened, because it didn't seem serious enough, because they didn't want to overstep, because they assumed the couple would work it out. And maybe they would have, if Alice hadn't been drinking, if the argument hadn't escalated, if a dozen small factors had been different. But they weren't, and Ryan died. It's a reminder that if something feels wrong, if you sense danger, it's better to speak up and be wrong than to stay silent and regret it later. Finally, this case is a reminder of the importance of education and awareness. Alice was studying ethics and philosophy, subjects that required deep thinking about morality, responsibility, and human behavior. But all that education didn't stop her from making a terrible choice. It's a reminder that knowledge alone isn't enough. We also need emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and the ability to manage our emotions in healthy ways. Schools, universities, and communities need to prioritize education around healthy relationships, conflict resolution, and emotional regulation, so that young people have the tools they need to navigate the complexities of love and relationships without resorting to violence. What could you or I have done differently if we'd been in Ryan's place, or Alice's, or one of their friends? It's an uncomfortable question, but it's one worth asking. Because the truth is, most of us will encounter situations where we sense danger, where we see warning signs, where we have a choice to intervene or stay silent, and the choice we make could save a life. Let us know your thoughts in the comment, because these are conversations we need to keep having, questions we need to keep asking, until we find better answers. Thank you so much for staying with us through this difficult and heartbreaking story. The case of Alice Wood and Ryan Watson is one that challenges us to think deeply about love, jealousy, control, and the warning signs we sometimes miss. It's a reminder that domestic violence can happen to anyone, that it doesn't always look the way we expect, and that we all have a role to play in recognizing and responding to danger before it's too late. If this case has affected you, if it's made you think about your own relationships or those of people you care about, we encourage you to reach out. Talk to someone you trust. Contact a domestic violence support service if you need help. And if you see something that doesn't feel right, trust your instincts and speak up. You could save a life. If you found this video valuable, please consider giving it a like and sharing it with others. These stories are difficult to tell and difficult to hear, but they're important. They remind us of the fragility of life, the importance of kindness and vigilance, and the need to support one another in times of danger. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. We cover cases like this with care, respect, and a commitment to truth, and we're grateful to have you as part of our community. Finally, we want to honor Ryan Watson's memory. He was a kind, generous, loving person who made the world better just by being in it. His family and friends will carry his memory with them always, and we hope that by sharing his story, we can help prevent other families from experiencing the same heartbreak. Rest in peace, Ryan. You deserved so much better. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.